Hey folks, before we begin, I want to give a huge shout out to my friend and author of tonight's story, Kaden Gardner. If you're new here, make sure to go check out the Kadenverse playlist. It'll be linked in the description below. We arrived in town via a halo jump. It's not my favorite way to travel. For those who don't know, halo stands for high altitude, low opening. Jumpers who partake have to wear oxygen masks because the jump is so high. It's also cold as hell. The wind bit at the five of us as we fell rapidly, the green earth beneath us getting closer and closer at a rapid pace. High altitude, low opening. I sprang my parachute at 3,000 feet. It yanked me up hard. I dangled there waiting for the rest of our descent into the frozen Alaskan wilderness. Now here's a good question. What is one of America's premier special forces units doing halo jumping into the Alaskan tundra? Well, let me tell you in one word. Spetsnaz. The fucking Soviets were in town. And what made the Soviets brave enough to decide, hey, let's invade actual American soil? Well, that would be the bunker, or as we've dubbed its call sign, Undertaker. Based on our debriefing, Undertaker was built in 1949. It was a US military R&D facility that was originally run by a Dr. Harry Kaiser until 1953, where the facility was passed down to a colonel whose name was classified. What they did and how they did it was also classified, even to a bunch of Delta operatives like ourselves. The facility was abruptly shut down in 1981. Again, we got no details on that either. I was willing to bet the Soviets in the area had more details than we did. I'm sure you're wondering, what exactly was our job when we touched down? What was our assignment at this bunker? Well, to put things simply, it was to gather intel. That included research notes, hard drives, cassette tapes, anything we could find. The rest would be liquidated. We had to get there before the Spetsnaz did, which, according to our briefing by the annoyed-looking CIA agent, they had flown in from a safe house in Canada and were already underground. They'd somehow managed to evade the FBI and Canadian intelligence unit sent to capture them. Fucking losers. We weren't sure how far out they were. We knew there were only 4 of them though. We landed at 8 in the morning. I packed my chute and made sure my Car 15 was cocked and ready to go. My team of 5 landed in a clearing that sat maybe a mile from the bunker. We'd have to try and land on top of the bunker, but that would be a little hard considering it was in the middle of the wilderness. As stated previously, my team consisted of 5 members for that mission. I want to avoid using their real names for their own sakes. Their call signs were Tree, who was our designated marksman. He was a tall, lanky man that had a suppressed M14. Then there was Axel. He was our demolitions guy. He also spent most of his time in the gym. This dude was massive, just a 250-pound slab of meat. Quite the opposite from Badger, who was maybe 5'6" and 150 pounds soaking wet. He was, crazy enough, our fucking machine gunner. The little dude had a 249 and a little man syndrome. Then there was our team lead, Solo. How did he get that call sign? Well, the man looked just like the actor Harrison Ford. Keep in mind that this was in 1990. Then there was me, second in command. Call sign, Hammer. We had reinforcements ready to go, of course, specifically a unit of Army Rangers that were waiting for the go-ahead. We didn't say a word as we made our way to the bunker, communicating through various hand signals. We passed through some dense foliage until we found ourselves staring at the bunker entrance, which was a small concrete doorway that led directly to a flight of stairs. I only know that because A, it was in the briefing, and B, it was wide fucking open. The Russians had beaten us there. Now we had to make them pay. I can remember glancing at Solo as we approached it. Solo grumbled something under his breath. I signaled Badger to take point as we formed up to head down inside. He did so behind his 249. We crept down into the doorway, then down the stairs. The first thing that assaulted my nose was the stench of rot and decay, mixed with some kind of irony tang, like decomposition mixed with fresh blood. The grip on my rifle tightened. The hallway we found ourselves in was narrow. From what I could recall from the blueprints, it led to the front desk, then the decontamination chamber. Then there should have been another stairwell that went to the next level. The lights in the hallway had been turned on by our Russian friends, so there was that. Part of me wished they hadn't been though. The concrete walls were all blood-stained. We hadn't made it 2 steps off the stairs when Badger's voice sounded off. "I got a body." There was a mostly decomposed corpse leaning against the wall. It wore a bloody lab coat, the blood now a brownish color due to age. Bits of skull could be seen through areas of the rotten face. I squatted down in front of it. It had formerly been a woman. My eyes moved down to her name tag. Dr. Helen Walker. What had killed this woman? Had she been trying to escape when she'd been killed? "Let's move on," Solo barked from behind me. I stood and raised my weapon, moving toward the front desk. There was a dead security guard in an MP uniform behind it. There were splatters of blood all over his desk and computer. "This shit's creeping me out," Tree whispered. "Shut up," Solo ordered. We stacked up at the next doorway, one that was labeled in big red lettering, "Decontamination." That room was also covered in blood. We could see it through the open doorway. We went in hard and fast, but it was empty, other than the brown bloodstains covering the white walls. The decontamination room had clearly been shut off for a while now. There was a sealed door on the other end of it, a door that had already been opened. I took point with my Car 15. We went through the door one at a time, finding ourselves in a stairwell. Now we were getting to the good stuff. The stairwell went straight down and connected all 5 floors of the facility. The entrance and decontamination was the top. The floor directly below us was the lodging and lounge area for the staff. The next floor was research and development. The next level was classified. Then below that was the data storage and record-keeping area. That was the area we were supposed to liquidate. First things first though, the Soviets. We made our way down the stairwell. Our first stop would be the R&D department. Solo, Axel, and I would go in, while Badger and Tree made sure no one came up the stairwell behind us. I was at point. We found ourselves in a hallway lined on either side with doorways that led to different labs. There were 4 of these rooms, 2 on each side. I can remember being slightly annoyed that the 3 of us were about to have to clear these rooms. The blueprints didn't show what was in these rooms at all. I wasn't sure what to expect. Then came the scream. The blood-curdling scream from the second door on the right. My eyes shot to Axel, then Solo. Solo motioned his head for me to take point. I did so quickly. We made our way to the doorway, wasting no time to round the corner. The smell was what hit me first. The fresh blood and maybe shit. The lab was a disaster. There were several desks and tables toppled over. Lab equipment was shattered. Then there were 2 dead bodies. One looked as if it had been ripped in half. It was badly decomposed. The other was completely disemboweled. The Spetsnaz was leaning against the wall holding onto his own entrails, his eyes full of agonizing pain and fear. They locked onto us. He started to raise a pistol with one hand, but then he lowered it, almost like he knew it wasn't worth it. I quickly moved to him and knelt. "What happened?" I demanded. "Who did this to you?" He wheezed a few times, his blue eyes fixed on mine. "Do you speak English?" asked Solo. The man looked up at him. I could see the life beginning to drain from his eyes. "Don't ask me how. If you've been around dying people for long enough, it's just something you know." The Soviet got one last word out before he died. "Kaiser." The Russian slumped over dead. Solo and I looked at each other. "Kaiser?" Solo asked. "Means emperor in German," Axel said. "I know what it means," Solo said as he turned. I didn't think they were talking about the German word. The first thing that came to my mind was the briefing. "Harry Kaiser," I said. Solo's jaw tightened as he turned to me. I could tell he's been thinking the same thing. But that guy had to have been in his 80s by now, and there was no way he was here. Then again, we didn't really know what was going on here, other than something had killed everyone in this lab. Something was still down here killing people. Then, there were still 3 Spetsnaz unaccounted for. Then came the shouts. "Contact!" Badger shouted as the 249 thundered. The 3 of us made a mad sprint for the stairwell. Badger had ceased firing. Tree had his weapon aimed at the stairwell above us, Badger below. My heart was beating fast. What the hell is going on? Solo asked. There's some shit going on in here, said Tree. Tell me what happened. Badger says he saw someone in a white lab coat playing peekaboo in the stairway below us. Peekaboo? Asked an unamused Solo. I looked at Badger. He hadn't taken his weapon off of the stairway below. I could see beads of sweat falling down his forehead. My eyes followed his gaze down the stairs. It was 2 flights to the entrance to level 4. The stairs were narrow too from this point down. We'd have to go down single file. There was a bloody sign on the wall right next to where the first flight ended and around the corner for the second flight. A yellow sign with several blood spatters and bloody handprints that read, "Authorized personnel only." I know what I saw, Captain, Badger said sternly. You think one of the Spetsnaz guys stole some clothes? Asked Axel. And then gutted his friend? I asked. Badger turned his head and looked at me. I turned to look back at him. I could tell what he was thinking. I could feel what he was thinking. This shit was horrifying. Then I heard scuffling footsteps. Both Badger and I turned back with our weapons raised. There was a man at the base of the steps, a living man with an AK-74 strapped to him. He had civilian clothes on, as had the other Spetsnaz guy. His clothes were torn and bloody. He had cuts all over his face and a massive gash across his chest that was bleeding profusely. Help me, he pleaded. Put your hands up, I called out as I kept my weapon trained on him. Please, help. That was when a hand reached out from around the corner and snagged him. He was suddenly yanked off his feet with ease, which was made all the more horrifying by the fact that this dude was massive. He had to have been at least 260, and this arm yanked him like a rag doll. He screamed as he was dragged around the corner. Contact! I called out as I gave chase. Dumb decision, I know. I went down the stairwell and rounded the corner. I could see the doorway to the classified level 4 and down the next flight. No monster with a Spetsnaz in his grasp. There was a fresh trail of blood that led straight into the door, which was wide the fuck open. I came to a screeching stop once I reached the threshold. I could see into level 4. It was a large room. There were red lights hanging from the ceiling casting a faint red glow onto what looked like a glass cube. I could hear them before I realized what they were, thumping on the glass with cold and rotten hands. Their moans made my blood run cold. They were people. Or at least, they used to be. I stepped through the threshold, Badger and Solo coming in behind me. The room was vast. The cube was maybe 40 yards away. It stretched up to the ceiling. The cube was sizable as well, maybe 20 feet across, and Lord knows how far back it stretched. Surrounding the cube was a series of computers and monitors, machines that had been powered down years ago and were struggling to boot up. My eyes glanced down, where they found that the trail of blood led right up to the cube. What the hell? Asked Badger. It was as we got closer that I realized the figures in the cube weren't exactly amongst the living. Most of them had decayed and rotted flesh. Their eyes were all milky and dead. I couldn't get an exact count, but if I could, I'd say there were around 30 to 40 of them. They seemed to beat on the glass harder as they watched us approach. I think we were all a bit mortified, maybe confused as well. No, we were definitely confused. Is this real? Asked Tree as he approached us from behind. Looks pretty real to me, Solo said as he turned to Axel. Start planting charges. Sir? You heard me. Let's get the job done and get out. The job? Might I ask, what job is that? A voice asked from inside the cube. We all raised our weapons in unison. You Americans never change. Do you really think you can stop progress by blowing it up? My eyes narrowed as I tried to locate the voice in the crowd, to find the face of all of this, but I couldn't. What is this? Asked Tree. What is what? I assume you're asking about my deceased compatriots. That's easy. These are children of the Ferguson spores. I could go into the science or magic used to create them, but you wouldn't understand. Besides, I don't have time to sit around here and monologue. This Earth is ending, and I must find another before it does. We all looked at each other. And But unfortunately, I cannot let you blow this place up. We were all standing maybe 5 feet from the glass barrier. Badger was the closest. The barrier came down, and the dead were on us. The fuckers didn't shamble like in the movies either. These things full-on sprinted. Badger got off maybe 6 shots before he found himself wrestling for his 249 with one. 2 more then proceeded to jump on him and start tearing into his flesh. His screams still haunt me. I couldn't dwell for long as a zombified lab tech was on me. I raised my rifle and fired. The bullet whisked through its skull and it crumpled. I lined my sights up with the next, and it did the same. Then the next. I kept firing as I started to walk backward. I could see Axel bashing one's head in, while Solo had his pistol in another's face. I kept backing up and firing. I'm not sure how many I gunned down before my weapon clicked empty. There was one left in the group that had come bearing down on me. I switched to my sidearm and put 2 in its chest and 1 in its head. It fell. I adjusted my aim toward where Axel was having his entrails ripped out by 2 more. "No!" I screamed. That was when I felt a hand grab me. I turned and shoved my pistol into my assailant's face. It was Tree. "We gotta go. There's more!" he shouted. He wasn't wrong. Remember how I said I wasn't sure how many of the damn things there were? My original guess of 30 to 40 had been way off. My eyes went to the back of the cube, where a man, a living man in a white lab coat, stood in front of what looked like some kind of swirling wall of glowing purple energy. He seemed to stare into it. That was when I realized that the energy was in the center of some kind of machine. Then he turned to us as more undead came out behind him. He didn't have any real emotion in his eyes. There wasn't any malice or hate. No joy. Just a blank matter-of-fact stare. We were staring at a possibly endless horde. Solo came retreating by us, firing his rifle into the horde as it came forth. We all started to fall back into the stairway and started to move up the stairs. But a figure was suddenly just there above us. I was on point. I hadn't even gotten completely out of the doorway yet. Gunfire opened up from an undead Spetsnaz soldier standing at the top of the stair flight with his intestines dangling from his belly and a pistol in his hand. I returned fire, but Tree yanked me and shoved me down the other flight of stairs. We didn't have time for a firefight. We were suddenly moving down the stairwell and toward the 5th level. We were going the wrong way with the horde at our tail. We reached the bottom of the stairs in a hurry. The door looked like one you'd see on a submarine. Luckily, it had been opened already. We practically leapt over each other to get inside, Tree and I pulling it shut just as the horde reached the bottom step. We found ourselves in the record-keeping area, which was like a warehouse filled with boxes, filled with paperwork. I could hear the ghouls outside start banging on the door. I could tell the room was tense. We all had our weapons aimed, secretly praying that none of them knew how to open the doorway and get inside. This went on for a few moments, before there was some sudden movement behind us. Solo and I turned, where a man stepped out with his hands raised. "Don't shoot! Don't shoot!" he shouted in a Russian accent. He looked worse for wear. His eye was blackened and his lip bloodied. He had his AK in one hand, but it wasn't aimed, more thrown over his shoulder. "Drop the gun! Get on your knees!" Solo barked. The soldier did as told. Solo stormed up to him and pressed his rifle to his face. "What the hell is going on here? Why are there Russians on American soil?" The communist smiled. "You Americans bought this soil from Mother Russia. Answer the damn question." The Soviet took a deep breath. "Fine, seeing as how we're probably going to be dead by nightfall." The Soviet Special Forces commander was called Anton Liev. He was given this assignment after a defector approached the Kremlin about some kind of technology that could change the world. He would explain that the defector was the man I'd seen in the lab coat. He was a scientist or some kind of theoretical physicist known as Dr. Harry Kaiser. What kind of technology, you may ask? Teleportation. The man had apparently worked for the US government shortly after World War II and during Korea. He was the one originally in charge of this place before the US military decided his experiments were a little on the crazier side and decided to shut him down and put him in a top-secret black site prison, only for some jackass colonel to reopen the project without him a week later. As you can imagine, Kaiser was pissed. A lot of what happened next was classified, even to our Russian friend, but he ended up in Soviet custody about 10 months ago. Their original assignment was to obtain documents and intel on how to replicate a machine Kaiser had helped create here. Only when the Spetsnaz arrived, Kaiser had put on a lab coat and gone to work. When they tried to question him, he opened the cube and unleashed the undead on them. That story was all fine and good. However, it didn't explain what had happened here to begin with. We sat there trying to come up with a plan. We could hear the undead beating on the door. There were lots of discussions. Most ideas were dumb as shit though. Tree had found a TV hooked up to a VCR and a stack of cassette tapes. Solo watched The Soviet. I stood at the door listening to the creatures outside. As of that moment, the plan revolved around waiting for the ranger unit that was incoming as we'd missed our check-in. "Hey, look at this," Tree stated. He had a video pulled up on the TV. It was of an older man in a military uniform. He had the eagle on his chest that signified that he was a colonel. He looked tired and ragged. He had dark bags under his eyes. "This is Colonel John Stenson," he started. He took a deep breath. "I think I'm the last one left. Those things are everywhere. I'm placing the facility on lockdown. My last communication with command was for them to destroy this place. Don't let anyone see what we've unleashed. If the spores get into the wild, we won't be able to stop them." There it was again. Spores. Kaiser had called the dead the children of the Forgotten spores. They look like zombies to me. Stenson sat there for a moment. He sighed again. "We should have listened to Kaiser. God, I didn't even want this post. I guess it's too late to do anything now. There was a loud bang somewhere behind him. He turned and looked at the shelves, pulling up a Chrome 1911 as he did so. He then turned back to the camera. "Tell my wife I'm sorry. I did the best I could." He then abruptly put the gun to his temple and blew his own brains out. "Jesus," said Solo. The video kept recording for a moment before cutting off. I swear I could hear footsteps walking up from behind the camera. Tree pulled the tape out. It was dated November 13th, 1981. "Who labeled these?" asked Tree as he reached for the earliest videotape. It was labeled July 13th, 1955. He put it into the VCR. The image displayed was black and white. It looked like it had been recorded on an old camera and then reformatted for cassette tape. Then came the narration, a familiar albeit younger voice of Stenson. "The footage here is from the 1955 testing of the Forgotten spores. The narration is from 1979. Command has requested I update the records of this facility's experiments for VHS. They've even sent me one of good old Uncle Sam's media boys to help edit this shit." The camera displayed a glass box similar to the one upstairs, only this one was smaller. Inside the box sat a man who had kind of a grizzled expression. He looked sad and tired. There were several men in lab coats observing him. In the back of the glass box sat another one of those machines, the ones from upstairs that had those portals full of purple energy. "In 1949, Project Undertaker was started as an offshoot of the Philadelphia experiment. Command wanted teleportation. Someone called Dr. Kaiser offered it to them in form of a machine he designed, but didn't have the resources to build." An image of Kaiser flashed across the screen. "The problem we had with Kaiser's machine was wherever it led to. Every time we would activate the damn thing, these microscopic spores would come through, directly affecting anyone in the vicinity. They're dangerous. They hijack the nervous system, makes the victim look like they're rotting. They also make the victim want to eat people. Now, their cognitive abilities vary. Some can use weapons, some are mindless." The image flashed back to one of the men in the boxes. He was grabbing his temples and screaming silently as his eyes bled from their sockets. "Naturally, we wanted to weaponize them." The image flashed again. Several infected had been loaded into glass boxes. This clip had been taken outside. They were being moved across a beach. The clip cut again. We were suddenly staring at a small town. White lettering in the corner read, "Genesis, Texas." The footage had been shot from a rooftop. The city had been completely overrun by infected, those that weren't being torn apart. The results were more than we could have ever imagined. Vergessen was, or is, the infection rate is 100%. If you're bitten, scratched, if you breathe any of the spores in, these things will pilot your body. The video cut to a nuclear fireball consuming the small town. We suddenly had a new superweapon, a new kind of WMD. The only issue was we couldn't contain it. Genesis was a success by military standards. The town was devastated by the spores, but containment failed. Genesis was chosen because of its relatively isolated location. Then we dropped a bomb on it to cover it up. There was an image of another town, this one in flames. I could hear the colonel take a deep breath. 3 months later, another outbreak occurred in a city called Shiner, Texas, which is 59 miles away from Genesis. We didn't know how exactly the spores spread there. My best guess would be that an infected wandered into town. We did what we always do. We attempted to contain. When that didn't work, another nuclear blast wiped out a second city. Over 1,000 people died. Neither of those places made the history books. Kaiser warned us. We shouldn't have locked them up. The screen went black. My eyes went to the stack of tapes. There was one for every year until 1979. Then there was the video of the colonel offing himself in 81. We discussed putting the next video in. There was some debate, of course. Tree wanted to. Solo didn't care. It isn't the mission, was all he said. It was around then that we noticed the banging on the door had stopped. Anton was sitting with his back against the wall. He scoffed, which caught Solo's attention. "You got a problem?" Solo asked. "No," Anton replied. "That's what I thought." Solo took a deep breath. Anton mumbled something in Russian. Tree and I looked at each other. The mission had gone to hell in a handbasket. We all knew that. All we really had time to do was sit and think. Then the thought occurred to me. I stood up and looked at the Russian prisoner. "Correct me if I'm wrong, but Dr. Kaiser promised your government teleportation, correct?" "Duh. Why'd he want to come back here? He'd built the contraption once before, albeit not correctly." "He wanted documents. Obviously a lie." "Had he tried doing the experiment in the motherland?" I asked. "Duh. Kremlin say it no work. He claimed he needed to see notes he made at this base." I looked over at Solo, who seemed to realize what I was thinking. "Were you present for any of this?" Solo asked. "No, I am just escort." "Kaiser said that the world was ending. You don't think the Russian experiments caused an outbreak, do you?" I asked. I could see Anton tense up in the corner of my eye. Solo noticed it. "Well, Mr. Kami?" Solo asked. "I don't. I am soldier. I follow orders." Anton thought for a moment. "But why come back here? I mean, we all saw him. He's got some kind of control over those things." Tree added. "Moreover, how he'd break out of prison and get to the Soviets to begin with." I added. The room sat in silence for a single agonizing second. My eyes scanned the room. "None of those questions matter right now," Solo said softly. "What's Kaiser doing upstairs?" It was as if on cue. The sounds of muffled gunfire erupted from out in the hallway. We all shot to our feet, our hands clutching our guns. I dropped to a knee with my rifle raised. Was that the Rangers? Had our backup finally arrived? The gunfire was intense. There was an explosion that shook the base. We all sat and waited in anticipation. I mean, what are we supposed to do? "That has to be backup, right?" I asked. Solo didn't even hesitate. He walked up to the door and started to open it. Tree followed, snatching his hand by the wrist. "What are you doing?" "If those are our guys, then this may be our chance to get up there and blow this place to hell." He turned and looked at me. "Load those tapes into your bag." I looked at him like he was retarded for a moment. He sighed. "We have to bring them something, guys." That was when the door's opening mechanism started twisting. We all aimed our weapons again. My heart rate began to throttle. The vault-style door slid open slowly. No one was waiting behind it. We stood with trepidation, no one knowing what came next. Then came the voice. "Striker?" It challenged. "Fort." Solo accepted. 2 army rangers entered the room. They were both wielding M16s and covered in sweat. Their green woodland camo uniforms were damp with it. "Boy, are we glad to see you," Tree said. The rangers looked relatively young. They both looked terrified. One turned to the doorway. "Captain, we found the Alpha team." The ranger captain walked in. He had an M16 gripped tightly in his hands and a 12 gauge strapped to his back. He looked us up and down. "You boys look like shit." "Good to see you too, Captain Lennox," Solo said. Captain Lennox was a tall and broad black man with the most bass in his voice that I'd ever heard. He smiled at us. "You mind telling me what the fuck is going on here?" "You ever seen Dawn of the Dead?" I asked. "I don't watch stupid-ass movies." "How very ranger of you," said Tree. The captain ignored that. He looked at Solo. "We have taken every level from these things except the 4th level. They've barricaded themselves in." Captain Lennox sneered. "Let 'em. We need to blow this place to Kingdom Come," said Tree. I agreed with him. "We will, after we recover Dr. Kaiser," said the captain. What? Our orders were to gather intel and liquidate," Solo asked. "Plans changed when you didn't check in. The spooks on base want him alive." "How do they know he's here? The FBI didn't, and neither did the spooks that gave us this assignment," I said. "It seems the Russians are having some kind of biological crisis." I turned to Anton, who'd started to get to his feet. "They nuked one of their own cities this afternoon." We were right. There was some kind of outbreak happening. This was bad. This was world-ending bad. "We don't even know exactly what he's doing in there," said Solo. "We will when we blow it open." "I'm not sure that's a good idea," I said. "Why not?" "Those portals? You remember the video, Solo. If we get too close." "Kaiser stood right by them?" Solo asked. "You're right, but does any of this seem normal? That man should be older than my dead grandma, but he doesn't look a day over 40, I said. "He's right," added Anton. "Shut up, commie," Lennox barked. "We don't want to rush in there and get too close to those portals." "Why the hell not?" "We could be contaminated by whatever those things are infected with," said Tree. "They're zombies. Just call them fucking zombies," I said. Captain Lennox eyed me. I could feel the whole room staring at me now. I grunted under my breath. We all knew I was right. No one really wanted to admit it though. "We're not leaving without Kaiser. Those are our orders. We have them trapped," Lennox said. "Did you bring mop gear?" asked Solo. Lennox scoffed. "Do I look like an amateur to you?" We'd brought mop gear as well. Solo looked at me. "That work?" he asked. I only sighed. For those of you unaffiliated with anything military, let me educate you on what MOP gear is. MOP stands for Mission-Oriented Protective Posture. It's protective gear that's meant to be used in a toxic environment. It consists of a gas mask, overgarments, an M9 paper detector, gloves, and overboots. The main worry about this in my mind was breathing these spores in, so gas masks it was. Now I know what you're thinking. Why in God's name did you not already have that shit on? Well, we weren't exactly briefed on any biological weapons at first, were we? Besides, shoulda, coulda, woulda. You can't change the past, only learn from it. Luckily, we weren't close to those portals earlier, but I would be lying if I said I wasn't convinced those spores weren't all over level 4 by now. The MOP gear didn't exactly make me feel comfortable, but it made me less nervous. We had maybe 30 rangers with us. We were about to storm the shit out of this room, zombies or not. Our team waited at the base of the stairs while a few of the rangers rigged the door with explosives. Lennox was very adamant about them going in first. Neither Solo or I argued. Don't get me wrong, we both wanted to kill the hell out of Kaiser for what those things did to our guys, but we weren't exactly itching for a fight just yet. I took the best deep breath I could in that gas mask. My breath didn't smell too great. The rangers detonated the breaching charges. The explosion was loud. I think all of our ears were ringing like bells. The rangers flooded the room. There was gunfire. The rest of my team and I marched up the stairs. I rounded the doorway with my rifle raised. The Rangers were mowing down the dead with fury. I could see Kaiser at the far end of the room, working on something between the portals. Yes, portals. There were 2 of the purple swirls open now. He seemed oblivious to the battle going on behind him. The Rangers gunned down the rest of the infected. I wish I could say it was a fight, but it was a massacre. We suddenly found ourselves surrounding Dr. Kaiser in a semicircle. He was working on some type of spherical device with a soldering device. "Put it down," Captain Lennox commanded. Kaiser kept working. Lennox looked at us. I stepped forward with my weapon aimed. "Kaiser?" I barked. "Are you going to shoot me?" he asked as he kept working. I was on one side of him, Solo on the other, and Tree directly behind him. "Your zombies are all dead," I said. "My zombies?" He put down the soldering device and lifted the black sphere. The portals closed. I don't want to go back to purgatory. The effort it takes to get out is great. "You shouldn't have broken out," I said. Kaiser turned to me, the sphere tucked under his arm. "I wasn't speaking of your prisons, my friend." "Nevertheless," he said as his eyes suddenly went yellow. I wasn't looking at human eyes anymore, and I knew it. His height changed. He grew taller. His skin began to change color and texture. His white skin was replaced with green scales. His teeth became sharp and needle-like. It was in that moment that I realized why the spores hadn't affected him. "What in God's name?" Lennox asked. Kaiser turned to him, a sneer across his face. "God doesn't care about you." I raised my rifle. His head snapped to me and sniffed the air. "I can smell fear on you, soldier," he said as he raised the black mechanical sphere. "Allow me to show you what real fear is," he said as he pressed a button. The purple swirls boomed as they appeared behind him. I opened fire. Then Solo opened fire. Then Tree. He shielded his eyes while our bullets bounced off of his body. The Rangers fired. He was pelted from all sides, but still standing. This went on for a moment before the voice called out, "Hold your fire!" Everyone stopped. The lizard man glared at all of us. Then he smiled. "You shouldn't waste your ammo. You're going to need it." He pressed another button on the sphere. The 2 purple swirls behind him suddenly exploded in a blinding purple light. The next thing I knew, I was standing in some kind of marsh. I was knee-deep in muck. The sounds of bugs and wildlife were deafening. "What the fuck?" I asked. There was movement to my left. I aimed my weapon. Solo raised his hands. "It's me." "What happened?" I asked. "I don't know." We found Tree a few feet away on the other side of some tall grass. He was just as confused as we were. We linked up with most of the Rangers, including Captain Lennox and Anton. We also managed to get to the edge of the marsh. We found ourselves standing on solid ground, with our fellow soldiers all around us. "Where are we?" asked Lennox. "Florida, maybe?" asked Tree. I think we all knew that wasn't true. None of us had taken off our gas masks either. We didn't know if any of those spores were out there or not. I slung my rifle over my shoulder. Lennox turned to one of his Rangers, this one with a radio on his back. "Anything?" The kid shook his head. "Damn it." I pulled my compass. The needle was spinning like a ceiling fan. I took a deep breath. That was useless. I threw my head back and looked up at the sky. It was still daylight outside. But I could still see something out there that made my blood run ice cold. Above us sat the sun on one side of the sky. A sun that was beginning to set as 2 moons rose to take their place. One small and yellow, and the other a scarlet pinkish. "Oh shit," was all I said. A hush fell over the group. I know everyone had realized what I was staring at. All the while knowing that this was only the beginning. All the while knowing that The worst was yet to come.